I am so excited to welcome Dr. Hasan Kwame Jeffries, professor at OSU, winner of many distinguished awards. Welcome, Hasan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here in conversation with you.
Hasan, I want to talk about your journey a little bit, and your work, everything you do, is so exciting. You went and got yourself a BA from Morehouse, MA, and PhD from Duke. Why American history? And can you share that journey with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a little background. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up in the 1980s. And during that time in New York City and Brooklyn was a rough place. It was the middle of the rise of mass incarceration, the middle of the crack epidemic, the AIDS crisis was hitting. And as I was in my elementary and high school years, and in New York, you don't ride a school bus, you ride the public transportation. And I was crisscrossing the city as a youngster on my own. I could see the inequality that existed as I moved from poor Black neighborhoods to wealthy white neighborhoods. We don't think about segregation as being a northern phenomenon or a non-southern phenomenon, but it is very real, and New York is one of the most segregated cities, places in America. And so as I was traversing the city, I could see the inequality. But as I would enter my classrooms, I wasn't receiving any information that would help me understand what I was seeing outside. And I was drawn to history because history is really just a story of the past, a story about people. And so I had a natural sort of attraction to that. But the study of history is really an analysis of the past. And so I was drawn to history as a subject, but it could have just as easily been, had I been exposed to sociology or even psychology. What was driving me was wanting to understand what I was seeing and not receiving that kind of information and instruction that would help me make sense of it. And so that led me not only to sort of major in history, but to go to Morehouse College, a historically Black college, where I figured I would be able to get that sort of in-depth analysis. And that from there, moving on to Duke University and to receive the MA and PhD, still in American history with a concentration on the African-American experience, with an eye for understanding the past so I could better understand the issues that were confronting all people, Black people especially, but all people today, and hopefully, why I studied civil rights history in particular, to think about ways and help develop ways of doing something about it, right? So not just studying the past, but actually using the past, finding the usable history to make some better decisions and choices to help society make better decisions and choices going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. Story, history, histories that haven't been told, being kind of, brought back into the fore, and to arm ourselves to, make a better place tomorrow for us and for our kids and their kids. Hasan, what a remarkable journey. I know you're giving us the kind of nutshell encapsulation, but your journey also led to the important publication of your books. Can you tell me, why this is important? Why these books? Why your work is so important?
Well, my work focuses on the African-American experience, African-American history generally, but really on the African-American freedom struggle specifically. African-American history is so valuable as a discipline because it provides a prism through which not only to view the Black experience, but a prism through which to view and understand the American experience. Because the African-American experience is so central to the broader American journey. So that's critical in and of itself. But within that, I was really drawn to the African-American freedom struggle and to the civil rights movement, because that was such a unique and powerful moment, again, not just in the African-American experience, but in the American experience, in which people, ordinary people, those who were most marginalized and oppressed, the descendants of enslaved people in America, organized in a way that created the most dramatic change in terms of moving this nation towards democracy, towards living up to its actual stated ideals than any other movement, any other time in American history. And again, I have been interested throughout my career in what I call usable history versus useless history. I mean, there's some stuff where you can document, that's good. But I think we live in a time where we have to draw on those elements and aspects of the past that can be useful for us today. In the civil rights era, the civil rights movement, what people did and the models and the sacrifices that they offered for creating social change, for bringing about democracy, are so relevant, just as relevant today, even more so in some ways than they were then, that I really wanted to use the opportunities that I had to be in the academy to study these aspects of the past so that we could continue them and help disrupt that history that has been causing inequality for so long.
Remarkable, Hasan. Can you also tell us, you are a kind of TEDx superstar, tell us about confronting hard histories and how you bring that into your pedagogy, into your teaching practice, into your life. Yeah.
Yeah, well, hard history, what I call hard history, are those aspects of our collective past that focus usually on marginalized people, that revolve around questions of race, and gender, and sexuality, and the like, that are central to all of our experiences, but we choose to ignore them. We choose not to talk about them directly. We choose to continue to marginalize those past. And we can't keep doing that because that leads to the perpetuation of inequality. And so I have been very much committed to confronting hard history, whether that's slavery or racial discrimination during the Jim Crow era, or mass incarceration, or police violence and police terror in the streets. Though that's hard history. And it's hard because it's hard to wrap our minds around the brutal killings that we may find coming across our mobile devices. It's hard to talk about white supremacy. It's hard to think about the kind of inhumanity that undergirds all of this. But we have to. We have to talk about it. We have to think about it. We have to teach it, not just so that we don't repeat it, so that we don't continue it. And so in my classroom, these are the subjects that we wrestle with. And, and it's not just sort of black and white facts, if you will. I want my students to feel, to not just empathize, but to feel what it is. Now, you can't always walk in somebody else's shoes, and there's limits to what you can do. But there is a certain attentiveness that we all should have for the experiences of others, as well as for the experiences of ourselves and those who came before us, so that we can, as we move in our various fields of human endeavor, not everybody's going to be a teacher of African American history, but we can take what we have learned about the past, about the poor decisions that the nation has made, about the ways change has actually been brought about what's the real story behind some of the policies that exist today that continue to perpetuate discrimination, so that we can take that into our lives and into our places of work and business and family and school and play. And that can help govern how we interact with one another. And hopefully we'll be able to do that in a more fair, more just, and more humane way.
Hasan, one thing I have missed is being in your classroom and learning from you. I do get those special moments when you visit the Humanities and Cognitive Sciences High School Summer Institute. But yeah, what a remarkable work that you do and teaching practice. I know you've even taken you've taken classes to actual space, physical places that have been built by enslaved peoples, to have that visceral kind of deep, systemic learning, right? Race and class, race, history, your classroom, Monticello, tell us about, maybe share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a couple years ago, or 3 years ago, I had let me back up. 4 years ago, I had a group of students who were in my first year seminar, and I did a first year seminar for first year students, one day a week. And I had been asked to teach that class. I had been approached to teach that class for quite a while. And I had always refused because I was like, I don't want to do anything silly. I'm not really interested in doing a class on Harry Potter. And they're like, no, you can do something serious. And I said, okay, well, I want to teach this class on mass incarceration. And it just sort of tossed it out there. And the response from students coming in was amazing. And I had a group of students that first year, and they were phenomenal. And just terms of their desire to make sense of the world. And they were biology majors. It would be biology majors and science majors. And I'm thinking about that group now because they just graduated. This was the class of 2020. And we had that class, and I said, you know what? We're going to go somewhere. We're going to continue to learn. I know you all are going to move into your majors. And they said, we're down. And so what we wound up doing was going to James Madison's estate. The first time I took 12 of those students from there. And 2 years later, we were down at James Madison's estate, the father of the Constitution, and also an enslaver. And we were studying not just the past, but then walking through the past to the present. What was also going on in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so we spent some time at Madison's estate, but then we also spent some time in downtown Charlottesville, where white supremacists had just paraded the year, months before the first time we went. And part of the reason was this idea that experiential learning is so critical, that there's only but so much we can learn in a classroom. Now, the classroom is where we gather, where we meet, and where we will be, and the principal side of learning, yes, but learning is a lifelong endeavor and has to occur beyond the classroom itself. And I also believe in the power of place. And history happens everywhere, but certain history happens in certain places and certain times. And it's important whenever you have that opportunity to be able to spend some time in places where history happened, and not just where the great men resided, James Madison, the founders and framers of the Constitution, but the hundreds of enslaved people who made it possible for them to do what they did. And so to be able to walk those grounds, to spend time in the quarters where they lived, was even more powerful than spending time in the library where Madison sat and composed and drafted the Declaration of Independence, or rather the Constitution. And that, I think, is critical to how we all should be approaching history, that what we learn in the classroom is really a first step on an educational journey that is lifelong, but that also continues outside of the classroom itself.
Powerful. What's next for you, Hasan? What's next?
Well, I'm continuing to not only do research. I'm working on a book right now on New York City and centered on the 1980s, really beginning from the late 1970s into early 1990s, as sort of what comes after the civil rights movement, what comes after the Black Power era. And too often we think about the 1980s and 90s, and all we do is think about the rise of rap music and hip hop, which is fine. I enjoy and appreciate, but so much happened during that moment, from student activism connected to the anti-apartheid struggle, segregation in South Africa, to activism around the AIDS crisis, to the emergence of a new generation of Black elected officials. So I'm continuing to do work around that, but I'm also expanding some of my public history work. So I've been working for a number of years with various historic sites and museums, the National Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Motel. Worked with them for 5 years on a major renovation of their exhibits. And so now they're doing a renovation of an extension part annex. And so I'm working with them there. But I'm also working with teachers here in the Central Ohio area through the Global Arts and Humanities Discovery Theme, another program here at Ohio State. And we got some funding to work with K through 12 teachers on how to talk about and teach these difficult subjects, how to deal with hard history. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm not in the classroom, the K through 12, middle school, high school, elementary school, but I can still have a hand through the work that I do in the academy by working with teachers who, in my humble opinion, they're America's finest. They're the bravest. They're the ones who are truly on the front lines, and working with the students who will be a part of this institute. And so it's my way, not just of giving back, but of continuing to play the role that I have to play, given the opportunities that I have to do this kind of work.
Thank you, Hasan. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your journey with us. And African-American histories, hard histories matter. Thank you, Hasan.
Thank you so much.